بسم الله الرحمن الرحیم. السلام علیکم و رحمت الله و برکاته. دوستا و عزیزا، خدا کنه که خوب باشین، آرام باشین. اسم ما ولی حنیف زی است. امروز در برنامه صدای حق هستین، پروگرام ژوندون و زندگی. تاریخ امروز سپتامبر 16 است. خدا کنه که خوش باشین، آرام باشین. دوستا و عزیزا، چی شد؟ یک دو هفته شد که برنامه ما پیش نرفت، بازی خاطر که کم ذره مصروفیت بود زیادتر. دیگه بخیر پس به برنامه ادامه میتیم، پیش میریم. اگر میتونین، اگر کما هستین، امروز که است تاپیک درباره چیز است، اطفال است، اطفال صحتش، صحت روانیش و فکریش. اگر میتونین زیادتر فامیلا که هست میبینن این صفحه ما را که میبینن از صفحه تلویزیون و از صفحه اینترنت. دوستان عزیزایی را ما در انگلیسی چیز میکنم، تشریح میکنم. اگر میتونن که اولاده خود بشینن سعی کنین این پروگرام بسیار فایده‌مند است. اگر کدام سوال دارن شما میتونن که با ما تلفن کنین. نمبر تلفن ما در پرده تلویزیون است، هر دو نمبر است. میتونن که تلفن کنین، سوال خود از پیشم کنین. دیگه بس بخیر شروع میکنیم پروگرام. هر چقدر که میتونن بشنوین ببینین که این پرزنتیشن ما یک چند روز پیش در انستیتوت آف نالج در دایموند بار که بود، یک انستیتوت اسلامی است، یک پرایویت مکتب است. در اونجا بر کارگرایش این پرزنتیشن کردن، بسیار خوش کردن. و دیروز هم یک برنامه داشتم در مسجد اروین درباره خودکشی بود و بسیار چیز پروگرام خوش کردن. و بازی خاطر میگم که خوش کردن، بازی خاطر که هست که من که کدام وقت پرزنتیشن میتونم بعد از یک ورق دارم صفحه، ما بهش میگیم فیدبک سرویس، که با ما نشته کنه که یا من که آمدم این پرزنتیشن یک درباره خودکشی که مدادم چطور بود، یا خوشتان آمد، یا کمک کرد شما را، یا علامتایشان که هست میتونن که شما دیگه دوستا را کمک کنین. اگر سلوا خدا نکنه سلوا یک سختی بهم دیگه، یا که هستن در ورق نشته میکنه و میگن که چی خوب بود و چی خراب بود، چی کار کرد، چی کار نکرد بشان. دیگه ما از اونمو که اینمی فیدبک که ما میگیم جمع کردم، جاترشان بسیار خوشحال بود. دیگه دوستا عزیزا دیگه شروع میکنیم. Again, my salam to everyone. I hope you guys had a great, you're having a wonderful weekend. Again, welcome to the show. Today I will be discussing about child's health. So a lot of us are always constantly involved in, what do we do? How do we work with our children? One of the hottest topics that we have in today's world is child health. Health, physical health, emotional health, spiritual health. So now the question becomes, as parents are always constantly wanting more and more information about what can they do to help their child. And that's something that, we always work on, developing. We try to learn new patterns of how to work with your child. We learn to create new scenarios, new ideas, give new examples, do some role plays on how to better the parents and the child's communication skills. And not just that, but really learn about the mental health aspect of a child, and actually even knowing the signs and symptoms of their behaviors. So I just wanted to start off by saying that children can develop the same mental health issues or mental health challenges as adults, very similar, but their symptoms may be different. And you just gotta know how what to watch out for and what to detect for. It is hard to identify, especially for parents, which is normal. A lot of parents that I talk to, they always tell me, we don't know what's going on, why the child is acting a certain way. We don't know what the solution is to this problem. Well, we tell them, you gotta take it easy. It's not easy. First and foremost, you as a parent, even though you're a parent, you have limited information on understanding your child's behavior. That's why we have professionals that actually come out and they will tell you what did they see or what did they observe. But based on their observations, they can better help you, better give you, good tools to use to helping your child improve their behaviors or their breakdowns, if they have mood swings. So we're going to go ahead and discuss a lot of that in the presentation. But dear brothers and sisters, one of the things that I have noticed in the community that I always wanted to touch bases on before I start a presentation, no matter it be about suicide, it be about an anxiety disorder, schizophrenia, psychosis, bulimia. What I do is I always discuss the importance of stigma. Stigma is basically a term that is defined. It is a powerful social force which allows one group of people to exclude or discriminate against another group. So basically you have someone, an individual or a group discriminating you against a certain cause. Now the reason why I talk about stigma, because it's a big issue in our community today. No matter what we do, it starts from the house itself. From the moment we get older, or as we grow older, our parents, family members, brothers, sisters, uncles, aunts, they shut us down on not to disclose certain things, certain matters. There are times where children get physically abused, they get sexually harassed by family members, but guess what? The parents shut them down. You have husband and wife, in constant battle with one another. We know that they're not compatible for one another, but what happens? The family shuts them down. The community at large shuts them down. It's that stigma. It's the idea that you are to do what society feels is best for them, what the family thinks is best for them, but not knowing how hurtful that individual or that the person or the child is suffering. So now the importance of that is what is the impact of stigma on people who struggle with behavioral health disorders? So before we go on, what I want to do is I want to discuss certain things. I kind of want to give you guys a bigger picture of stigma first, and then break it down, and then go ahead and then talk about the child later. So let's talk about what are some of the impacts of stigma on people or with their struggles. So this includes children. This includes adults, teenagers, seniors, everyone. So the question is, it is things that it lowers the person's motivation to seeking professional help. So if there's stigma regarding mental health, where a person cannot go out and seek for help, that is because people have low self-motivation to go out and seeking assistance from professionals. It results in self-stigma, or the person feeling ashamed of needing help. Growing up, usually we're taught never to ask for help, never to reach out and ask somebody, can you please help me? Because it was called shameful. People say it is shameful to ask for help. It is shameful to ask for assistance. So why is it shameful to ask for assistance if you have some form of, pain, some form of challenge that you're facing in your life? Why is it so shameful to ask for help for that? But if your child falls and they break their leg, why do you run so quickly to help your child in that, but not to work with them when they have when they have some kind of disturbances in their brain? And that could be life, that can be just certain challenges where your child has a hard time learning some school materials, but then you keep forcing them to study, but you're just telling them to just study and things will get better. But in reality it doesn't. So what do you do, right? So that's kind of the question. Why are we not seeking other options? Why aren't we actually taking the child to a specialist? Why aren't we taking a person or a husband or wife that are in conflict battles amongst each other? Why aren't we allowing them to go seek counseling outside of the house? A parent or an adult, a senior adult, let's take, our grandparents. There's grandparents here in the States today, in the US, where I have witnessed and I have seen them become socially isolated. And reasons why: one of the partners passed away, either the grandfather or the grandmother is no longer there. You have the son or the daughter, or the daughter-in-law, or the son and the son-in-law, they're working, they're busy working, there's nobody home to stay with them. Grandkids are in school. So you usually have grandparents, as they get older, they become more socially isolated. And there's different factors to it. There's the factor of the language. They don't speak full-on English. They don't understand people out in the community as much. Or if they do understand, they cannot speak English. So people do not understand them because of their age and they don't give them time. You've got, lack of transportation. There's nobody to take them out. They can't, they have a hard time mobilizing. So our grandparents have a hard time going out into the community and actually going out and taking a look at, what's out in the community. Do we have any shopping centers? Do we have any coffee shops? Do we have a library? Those are the things that our grandparents lack. And one of the biggest shames that our community really face is that we will keep our parents at home and not let them go out and be at an adult day health center or be in a community program, because that's shameful. But just to give you guys a good input, you guys are causing more harm than doing good to your grandparents, because you have to remember it's temporary. When you send your grandparents to an adult day health center or a community center to join exercises or to be with the same communal group, or at mosques if they have programs for seniors, everybody gathers, they learn, the people go over topics, they have programs, they have programs like games, they play chess, they read, they write, they talk with one another, and that keeps them going. But then the stigma of it is that the parents stay home because we don't let the grandparents out because of A, B, or C. But then again, it's the pride is there more than not knowing how much harm you're causing your own family member. So that's an example of why why we are so ashamed of seeking help. So please remember, you have to be open with yourself, and you have to make sure that your family does not suffer for your actions or for our actions. It lowers a person's self-esteem. It discourages people from staying into treatment, and therefore it lowers chances of recovery. Sometimes I've heard individuals or folks in the community that are in need of hospitalization, but it's hard for them to constantly go to an outpatient clinic to take medication, because if you're taking medication for depression and that's something that was prescribed to you by your physician, someone else, a friend or family member, looks at you and they'll say, why are you taking medication? Don't take medication. Nothing's wrong with you. Well, sometimes the medications are good for that person. So what the friend is doing, you're not helping. You're actually shaming the person for saying that, there is nothing wrong with you. We don't really understand the level of depression an individual falls into, or symptoms that they carry. So we have to be very mindful of that, and that's why a lot of people, they get out of their medications and then they go all they go crazy again, right? When we say they go crazy, they get mad easily, they talk too much, or they don't talk at all. So you have to remember, these are certain patterns we have to be very watchful of. The person's family may hide the person who is struggling with the disorder, fearing the negative judgment of the community. So, dear brothers and sisters, this is something that I have noticed big time, but this is also a factor that I have seen repetitively. The community does shame one another, which is unfortunate. In the community, I've seen parents or children or family members who have some form of disorder. There's folks that have ADHD, children that are diagnosed with ADHD, kids that have autism, kids that have Down syndrome especially. Families do not take him out into the society. They don't take him out to different family gatherings, and that's because of the stigma and the shame there again, because the families feel uncomfortable. And I think as a community, we need to really help one another than actually discourage one another and say, keep your child at home, don't bring him. Or the family thinking that, if my child is lacking some form of motor or behavioral skills, I'm not going to take him because people are going to talk. You're causing a lot of pain to your child and yourself. So remember, even as a parent, you also have to remember to let your child out in those gatherings. It doesn't matter, or even if that means that your community is not supportive, you still have to be very supportive of your own child. The other thing we can look at is the family may not get the help they need to support their family members in his or her process of recovery. There's been times where I've worked with, again, these are based on life experiences that I've had, or personal experiences with, with friends, but at work, professionally. There's a lot of times where families are in denial that something is going on with their kids. Either be their kids, they either be themselves or their parents. A lot of them are in big denial of not wanting to hear the word, that not wanting to hear or know that they have severe depression. People go through depression. Everyone has gone through depression. It either be slight depression or long-term depression. The main goal and idea is that you have to be open to accepting what is there. So a lot of us, some of the community members or some of the fellows, Afghans or the Muslims or anybody out in the world, they really don't accept the fact that there's something going on. Again, I'll use the same example. If you fall and you hurt yourself and you see blood coming out, you cannot ignore that. You have to treat it. You have to heal it. Same way, the same thing goes to you, when you are going through a hard time in your life where your mind is unable to really cooperate with yourself. So you have to make sure that you're able to seek that help and go forward with it. So before we go on, dear brothers and sisters, I like to go ahead and play a video. I brought some videos today. Before we go on and we talk more, here's the first clip of our mental illness education for children. So please enjoy it, and then when you come back, we'll go further.
Have you ever broken a bone? What did you do? You went to the doctor to get an x-ray, and they put your arm in a cast. Breaking a bone is common, and nobody told you to just snap out of it, as if you could control whether or not it was broken. How about when you are sick with a fever? You go to the doctor and they prescribe you medicine that makes you feel better. No matter how hard you try, you can't use the power of the mind to mend bones or cure sickness. Everybody knows that. But there are some illnesses that you cannot see. Mental illnesses. Illnesses in the brain. No different from a broken arm or a sore throat, other than the fact that they cannot be seen because they are inside your head. Like a dysfunctioning traffic light turning the wrong color and messing up traffic, mental illnesses are caused by chemical imbalances in the brain causing certain signals to be disrupted. A common example of mental illness is depression, which is when someone feels sad almost all of the time, even if they are in a happy environment. And another example is anxiety, which is when someone feels nervous or scared, even in the calmest of situations. They aren't choosing to feel this way. In fact, they can't control it any more than you could control having a sore throat. And to fix it, they need to go to the doctor too. 1 in 4 people will suffer from a mental illness in their lifetime. The other 3 will have a friend or family member who will. This affects everyone. Just because someone has a mental illness does not mean they are different. They just need to reach out and ask for some help. The bravest person can suffer from anxiety, and the happiest person can suffer from depression. Support friends with mental illness the same way in which you would support a friend with a broken arm. And if you think you have a mental illness, do not be afraid to go to the doctor or talk to a parent. You are not weak, it is not your fault, and you are not alone. There are people all around you with mental illnesses living normal lives. By talking about mental illness and supporting each other, we can heal minds as easily as we heal bones.
Dear brothers and sisters, welcome back. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. It talked about, it was a cartoonish little skit that it was created, in which I wanted you guys to share on. Was if you have your kids, it's a great program for the children, for the family to hear today and to listen to. And it just talks about, again, it's one of those matters of we cannot really not implement ideas, or we cannot just ignore situations that actually occur in our families with our children. We have to intervene as soon as possible, so please take that into consideration big time. Just a little bit more, I'm gonna touch bases on the stigma and why it's there, and how can we work on it, but then I will go ahead and finish up and then just start discussing more about children and their mental health being. Why we need to eliminate stigma in behavioral health? Well, eliminating stigma will help people who need professional care seek the support they need without having any fear or shame. So basically, what does that look like? And I'm going to give you certain steps on what you can do to help your family and your child, yourself as well. So please take those 4 simple steps of how to reduce stigma. Number 1, not to use stigmatizing language. What I mean by that is, do not tell somebody that you are crazy or your child is crazy because they're acting a certain way. You do not want to use words that are harmful, hurtful, either be your family, your friends, or anybody in the community. We want to make sure that we are respectful of one another, and we have to be able to be open to see, okay, what is going on? Why is the child acting up? Is there something going on with the child? Is there something going on with the family? Does the family need help? Now remember, if a child is having a hard time, if they're acting up or there's certain difficulty with them, let's say the child is diagnosed with something. Now imagine, the parents already are going through so much pain and so much struggle, but then you yourself or myself, what we do is then we use stigmatizing terms to say that they're bad parents, they don't know how to parent their children. So we have to remember, sometimes there's parents who work so hard with their child, and we demoralize the parents. We give them no credit for being good parents, and we have to make sure that we don't know that. We don't know what kind of how stressful the parents are, how stressful the child is. Maybe the parent and the child are working so hard together, but it just isn't working out. Maybe it's a lack of community. Maybe it's a lack of the family, friends. Maybe it's the lack of yourself or folks like me to be in that individual's life to make things better for them. So you have to remember that. Please do that. Number 2 is also to recognize the signs and symptoms of disorders. I'm going to go through the signs and symptoms as we go more on to this to my presentation, but remember, there are signs and symptoms we have to watch out for. Knowing what the signs are, detecting the warning signs, you can better, by better understanding those signs, you can better have a picture of what it is or what is the diagnosis. Why was the child acting a certain way? Well, with symptoms and signs of how they behave, the things they say, how they act, will help you determine that problem. Number 3, you have educate others about negative impact of stigma. It's so important for us to help educate those that are unaware of the stigma around mental health. And that's something that I do. That's personally something that I do all the time. Is I go out and I do presentations. Me coming on TV and discussing this matter is really to educate the community on how to reduce stigma. And that's big. Either it be within the family, you have to talk to one another, and you really have to break down, and you have to accept the fact that there is certain matters that requires attention, help, support, and that you cannot fall into your pride, your honor, your status, or how things were back home. You cannot go based off of that. Life back home versus in Afghanistan or in Morocco or in India or where where you're from, compared to here, it's much different. Life is much different, so you have to know that. Fourth and lastly, our last approach in reducing stigma would be approach people who need help and connect them to behavioral health professionals. So remember, if you know somebody that is going through a hard time, you know that there's difficulties in the life of that individual. They're having a hard time. They don't know how to work around certain issues. The easiest thing is, do not, if you feel like you cannot help them, what you can do as a good Samaritan, as a good Muslim, as a good person, a human being, refer them out. Refer them out to professionals like myself or others in the community. For instance, if somebody's sick, or if your child is sick, what do? Do you take care of it? Let's say you can't take care of your child. They need more attention. They need medications. Well, then you go to a doctor, right? Well, same way. When your child or somebody's having a hard time, you refer them out to a therapist or a professional that can help help that person. So please remember that. Again, if you have any questions, please do call. This is something that I really enjoy doing in the community, and I want your guys' feedback on certain matters, certain situations that you guys have experienced, certain things that are still existing in today's society, and how we can make a change. And basically, the most I can do is help educate folks, and the rest is really up to you and how you want to take that information. If you want to use it, you do not want to use it, that's up to you, really. But if you do have any questions, if you guys want to share your thoughts, please give me a call. My number is underneath shared in the screen, so please try both numbers. So as we go forward into the presentation. So now, increasing our knowledge about behavioral health disorders helps eliminate stigma. In order to help people, we need to really learn about the nature of behavior, such as behavioral health disorders, and then find resources that can really help the community at large. And that's really the goal. The goal is to help find resources and then be able to help those that are in need. So now the question is, why don't we seek help or behavioral health disorders when we need to? There are certain things that really stop us from seeking help. And one of those things are, again, I said, the shame, community shame, family shame, society itself keep you away from it, you yourself keep yourself away from it. But other barriers to seeking help is really having no insight. What I mean by that is we may not know that we are suffering from a behavioral health disorder. There's times where families, individuals in your own family that are constantly crying at home. They're saying, they're having dreams of death, they're having dreams of people coming to their, that are coming in their dreams. They're children that act out, they don't want to talk, they go upstairs in their rooms, they don't want to have a conversation with the family. There's times where those individuals themselves don't know what the problem is. There's a disturbance that you are unaware of. And part of therapy and part of helping our clients or family members or communities at large is that what we do is, as professionals, I go out and I help them understand what is it that's causing that problem or that pain to them. Second is denial. As I said it, we may not accept that we require professional help or think we can handle it. I've seen this go both ways. If the problem is mild, I've seen families actually take care of family issues, and it's been resolved without a problem, very easily. Number two, if it's severe. Now, if it's severe, I've seen families, a case, amongst a family where a husband and wife constantly fights. Things don't get better. They don't seek help. Well, it comes to a point where either the husband or the wife starts hitting or throwing, physically abusing each other. Well, it gets late when that happens, and then it gets late when the police comes and takes away your child. That is when I've seen actual families come to therapy, because now they're being forced to come to therapy by the court. So remember, you have to intervene prior, even if it's a slight notion of, for instance, God forbid, if I have pain in my stomach or in my spine, what do? We always go to the doctor, right? Why can't we do that with behavioral health? If you know something is going on, you're having life challenges, you're unable to solve situations in your life, it's giving you a headache, you're having a hard time eating, you're having a hard time sleeping, come right in. There's no shame to it. You need to intervene, because these problems can build on one another. Because as children, this is how the problems get, it starts escalating, is when your child is going through a hard time and you're not sitting there, you're not helping them, or you don't take him to therapy, or you don't give them the proper help, your child's going to turn away and they're going to find friends that are not the best friends for them. They're going to start having friends that are alike, that are similar to them. They come from, with those friends that they hang out with, those friends themselves don't have families that love them, don't give them enough time. They end up doing things that are not good for the health, like drugs. From there, there's been families or kids, when they become teenagers, they start joining gangs, they start getting in trouble in school, they start causing fires, they start hitting themselves, they start getting fights with other people in class. So you have to remember, you have to intervene as soon as possible, please. And then lastly, again, it's the fear of stigma. We may fear that what others may say, if they know we are seeking help or behavioral health concerns, we may not be able to afford care, or we may not know about resources. So my biggest thing is also, the fear of stigma. If somebody finds out that I'm seeking therapy, then they'll say, there's something going on with this person. Something's wrong with them. Stay away from them. It's like a disease. Don't get close to him. It's like, don't get close to him. This person has a disease. Well, in reality, even diseases get cured. This is just somebody who's having a hard time, who does not have the equipped tools to have problem-solving skills. That's what it is. It's very easy. It's like doing a math problem, right? Some of us could be good at math, some of us are not. What happens when you're not good at math? Well, somebody else comes, teaches you the formula, the method, and you're able to solve, and you move on with your life. Same way with this. It's not disease, so please remember that. Also, the other thing is affordability is obviously into place. You have to make sure that you are finding care, or you are receiving care at a place where it's affordable. Your insurance covers it. There are free clinics that actually cover counseling sessions. You can do it out of pocket, so I know that becomes difficult, but there's so many organizations. I do it for free. The organization that I work for, but if you guys can, please look for resources. And one of the best resources that I would suggest would be going online, going to school. If you're somebody parents, I know this is usually pretty normal with parents, especially when there's a girl involved. Especially for parents, they always want their daughters to be seen by a sheikh or by an imam. You also have to remember that is okay, but at the same time, sheikh or imam does not have the skills to work with your child's difficulty. What they do is they give them Islamic perspective, which is okay, but that's going to cause more problem. Your child does not need that right now. When your child's going through a hard time, they need to sit with a professional that can sit them down and help them understand why are they doing things that that's causing problems for them and for the parents. And then from there, you take them to the sheikh little by little. So I know this, especially with boys and girls, a lot of the family members, especially the Muslim community, a lot of us send our daughters to imams and sheikhs, and things become more worse when that happens. First come, and then you take them later. Once the child is fully calm, relaxed, then you take them. You just don't want to take them into something that they don't want to hear, Again, accessibility free clinics are out there, county programs. I know we have a lot of Afghans in America. In today's world, there are a lot of SIV refugees that come in from special immigrant visas. A lot of Afghans that come here. If you guys aren't aware of resources or Afghans that have been here for years, remember, we've got free clinics. We have county-funded programs. County has free counseling sessions. Non-profit organizations provide that. Somebody else that's willing to pay, private clinics and all that. So now, let's get started and let's begin. So now we are going to get started, and we're going to start talking about children overall. Now we're going to start our presentation with with child and children. So let me just give you guys a brief description of some statistics. Then we're going to go watch a video, and then when we come back, we'll discuss more on this topic. But let me tell you guys that there's 1 in 5 child. So in every 5 child, just 1 child in the U.S. is experiencing mental health issues. So remember that. So you have at least 10 to 15% of the country, children facing or experiencing mental health issues. So let me run through some of the facts that we have regarding mental health facts in children and teens. Number one is 20% of youth that are in the ages of 13 to 18 live with a mental health condition. You have 11% of the youth have a mood disorder. Then you have 10% of youth who have behavior or conduct disorder. Then 8% of youth who have an anxiety disorder. 50% of all lifetime cases of mental health begins with the age 14th, and it goes up to 75% by the time they're 24. So that's a big number. The average delay. So let me tell you guys why that is. So when the child is usually at the age of 13 to 18, that's one of the most crucial stages. Reason why is that there's a lot of hormonal changes. A girl gets tall, she changes physically, her body changes, so we have to remember the same thing goes for the boys. They mature physically and mentally and emotionally. They start growing their first set of hair. It gets discomfort in girls and boys. They start having body image issues. Those are the challenges that they face and they fear. Now my question here is, do you guys actually sit down with your child and you guys talk about puberty once you hit puberty? That's something that you guys need to talk about. It is very important, and you cannot shy away from it. Puberty is a natural thing. Islamically, it's a natural thing. It happens. You have to talk to your child about it, so they are well aware of it. The mothers talk to their daughters, and the fathers talk to the sons. Even if it's like, for instance, like a father has to talk to the child and say, how much their hair has to, how much hair they have, no longer than how much, the inches that they can keep. And it's very important to talk about those situations. When a sister has, or she, first time has her menstrual cycle starts to begin, the mother needs to actually talk to the child and why that's happening, why the body is creating, and getting rid of some of the eggs in our body. You have to sit down. This is not a joke that people make. You might think this is something that we do not talk about. That's because you guys yourself were never, for instance, myself, we weren't educated on this. Our grandparents never educated our parents, or our parents never educated us. I'm one of them, so my parents never talked to me about stuff like that. But we have to really talk to our children, because if you don't, they're going to go and they're going to want to know it from other people. You rather have that information be taught from you than somebody else. So please remember that. And then also at this age, as they get older, you have to remember that a child is starting middle school and they go to high school. So they're starting to become more independent in the fact that they're starting to create their own mind and their own identity. Now the struggle between being a Muslim, being an Afghan, and being an American, it's very hard. It's very hard, especially in America, because you don't have everybody doing the same thing. Even if if you're in one family, every single member of the family is different. They have different identities of how they want to be known for. It's not Afghanistan where it's a Muslim country, everyone's Muslim, and then we have one culture. No, in America, it's different religions, different cultures, so the child gets confused. So for that, a lot of parents need to really intervene, and they need to be involved in their child's life and to help them understand the paths of choosing why we do certain things. Even if it's religious, even if it's cultural, you have to go through it differently, because if you don't do that, they're going to go ahead and they'll get the information for somebody else which you might not like. The other thing I wanted to discuss is that the average delay between onsets of symptoms and intervention is close to 8 to 10 years, which is kind of sad, because if you look at it, people are suffering for at least 8 to 10 years before they get any form of help. So what's going on? Why are we helping people later on in life? It's like somebody tells me, now just common sensely, let's say I get cancer tomorrow, and I have stage 1. Do I wait it out till I get stage 4 till 10 years? That's what ends up happening. Same thing with behavioral health, and when you have mental health issues, you want to intervene as soon as possible, because the further you go, the more problems it's going to create. So please remember that it's very easy. You just gotta be open to the idea that it's okay to go out and seek help. There's no shame to it, because at the end of the day, you have to remember one thing: people do not suffer for what you are doing to yourself. You're gonna suffer, and your family's gonna suffer. That's all. And your child, most importantly, your child's gonna suffer. There's also approximately 50% of students ages 14 and older with mental health who actually drop out of high school. 50% of students here in the United States today. And that includes Afghans as well. You know, Afghans, Muslims, everybody's included in it. 70% of youth in the state and local juvenile system, like being in court matters and put into the juvenile system, 70% of those youth have some form of mental health challenges. They're coming from a family that's, that didn't have good structure, good principles. They're coming from a family, of drug dealers, where the child became a drug dealer. Those are things that are unbearable or unskippable. And then not just that, but suicide is the third leading cause of death for people who are ages 10 years old to 24. And then 90% of those who have died by suicide have had an underlying mental health issue. So again, before we start more and we go further, I like to share a video clip of, in brief, early child mental health. So we'll watch the video, and when we come back, we'll discuss more about it. Thank you.
What do we want for our children? What's our goal? Our goal is to have productive citizens that are going to be part of thriving communities. So how do we get from here to there?
As we grow up and as we move into becoming functioning members of society, our mental health is an important part of how we perform our responsibilities as adults. Mental health can't be separated out from cognitive development and language development and kind of social competence. And they all have their roots early on in either a very sturdy or a weak foundation.
We certainly know that infants and very young children can exhibit behaviors, emotional behaviors, motor behaviors, which are predictive in certain cases of subsequent mental illness.
What are the early signs of mental health problems?
I think that when people look at children and think about mental health problems, that they have in mind often is the kinds of mental health problems that we see in adults. They're looking to see the equivalent of a depressed adult in a child, or the equivalent of a schizophrenic adult in a child. And I think that because of the nature of development, that when children have mental health problems, they just look different.
Some of the early signs of greater risk for mental health problems are usually not called mental health problems by people. They're usually called, things like behavior problems, or a child who has difficulty controlling his emotions. Some of these may be early signs of what might be a mental health problem later, and some of which may be just differences among perfectly healthy children.
So what does good mental health look like in a child?
Good mental health looks like a child who's curious and interested in the world and wants to learn and can sit and reflect at times about what's going on. It's the ability to experience love, affection, emotions, get upset when things are upsetting, and bring yourself back into levelness without needing intense intervention.
How do mental health impairments develop in early childhood?
21st century science at the molecular level is very clear that all aspects of brain function are the result of an interaction between genetics and experience. Mental illness, as most people think about it, has a very heavy genetic component. Mental health, behavior, personality, also has a genetic component, but it's much more malleable in the face of of environmental influences.
Genes and experiences, as far as nature is concerned, are just different ways of setting up operating systems, brain systems, neurons.
What happens when a child experiences what we call toxic stress, severe experiences that can be damaging to its developing architecture? Those toxic experiences essentially create this unstable environment, this unstable foundation.
If sound mental health provides a foundation of stability for a child's development, mental health problems can be thought of like a wobbly table. With a child or a table, there may be many reasons for instability. Identifying which factor is causing instability is the first step towards solving the problem. So how do we restore stability to a child's mental health?
We can detect the early signs of instability, recognizing what these signs are, provides the child with the opportunity then to be placed with healthcare professionals who are trained to develop a more balanced set of skills on the emotional control side.
The prescription is to provide support for parents and in that environment in order to reduce conflict, and that in turn will lead to a reduction in dysregulated behavior in the infant and young child.
Most potential mental health problems will not become mental health problems if we respond to them early. Providing the right kinds of supports and intervention early on will reduce the extent to which this will be a potentially more serious problem later.
Well, assalamu alaikum. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys are having a hard time understanding certain things that I discuss, or it's that you guys do not understand in the video, please do give me a call so I can better educate you guys, or better help you guys understand those certain elements of topics. So again, what mental health conditions and why it affects children, as we discussed even in the video, if you take a look at it and how it's really played out, it's very different than it is for an adult. And it's also pretty common for children to feel certain symptoms and signs. Children can develop all or some mental health conditions as adults, but sometimes they can express it very differently. For example, one example is a depressed child. Depressed children will often show more reliability than depressed adults, who show usually sadness. So a child cannot show sadness, or they cannot show their feelings of why they're depressed. They cannot talk about it. A child will most often cry, or most often act out. They don't want to be with people and just scream and yell and hit. That's a way of saying that that child has no control over their mind. So that's what usually happens. So let's talk and let's go ahead and discuss on some of the disorders and symptoms that we will be discussing. First, we have an anxiety disorder. One of the things that children experience is that they experience a range of certain conditions. Number one, an anxiety disorder, where children who have an anxiety disorder, such as obsessive compulsive disorder, post-traumatic disorder, social phobia, as a persistent problem that interferes with their daily activities. So if anybody that has general anxiety, especially if you're a child, your child will have a hard time focusing in doing a certain task. Because of the issues that's going on back at home. Your child is constantly thinking, if I go home, my brother is gonna hit me. Simple as that. My brother's gonna hit me. That child has fear of his brother or fear of his sister because it's been conditioned, and that's what the child remembers. So I don't know if you guys know this, some children do not want to go back home to, or they do not like their siblings because there's certain things amongst that sibling that that causes them a lot of pain or problems, even if it means the child or the sibling says something that's bad that affects the child as well. The other thing that we have, which is pretty common and a lot of children do have it in today's world, it's attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, as it is known as ADHD. I'm sorry. This condition typically includes symptoms in difficulty paying attention. So some children with ADHD have symptoms in all of these categories, while others may have symptoms in only one. So a lot of times you have to remember there's times where your child, you can give them a book and give them the book, and tell them to sit still, and read this book, and that child will not be able to read the book. The things that the child will do is they'll move around with their heads. They'll try to look to different places, and that's common. That's usually common for them. That's because of their brain chemistry and the chemicals in their brains that, and the control that they do not have, that causes them to become very hyper. They cannot sit still. If you tell them to sit still, what they'll do is they'll kind of like move around like this. They'll like move around. That means that they don't have control over their body. And one thing that makes it really bad, things that make it really bad is you have to remember a lot of sugar. Sugar is very bad for them. The more sugar you give them, the more their energy level goes up, and they get out of hand. They cannot control themselves. Excuse me. Sometimes they have, I don't know if you guys seen certain families, when you give your child candy, not every child gets hyper, not every child gets out of hand. Your child that has ADHD, they usually tend to act out more. They'll say things that that they don't think about. They'll start hitting people, and then they're just running around causing some kind of chaos at home, or even out in public. If you go into a restaurant and they get a can of Coke, and the next thing 30 minutes later, your child that has ADHD, it's fighting with the other child, and they're not listening to you, and they're slurring bad words. That's because your child needs to be checked. Your child needs to be seen by a specialist, and usually in these cases with ADHD, your child is to be prescribed medication. That's what ends up happening. And what the medication does is it kind of brings down the level of your child, and it keeps him steady. So your child, instead of going like this, he'll have more control. The muscle will be more relaxed. So that's what ends up happening. So remember, if you have a child that is somebody who has hard time concentrating or paying attention, remember, you have to get them checked out. One of the other things that it's also a hot topic that is also on the rise, and a lot of children do have them, or adults are experiencing from it, is autism. The autism spectrum disorder, the ASD. It is a serious developmental disorder that appears in early childhood, usually ages 3. So usually when they hit age 3, that's when we, as professionals, we know the signs and the symptoms of a child who will be diagnosed with having autism. So through symptoms of severity vary. Autism spectrum disorder always affects a child's inability to communicate, interact with others. So you have to remember, it's the form of communication. If your child, by the age of 3, are they talking to adults or not? Is your child making eye contact with you or not? Is your child properly able to do their own things independently? For instance, are they able to go use the restroom by themselves? Are they able to walk from one place to the other without needing any help? So you have to remember, these are signs and symptoms. And one of the things that I always actually, it's something new that I've been asking everybody to do whenever I go out and whenever I see a lot of the Afghans or the Muslims in the community. I always tell them, and the professionals too, no matter who you are, if you can advocate, but also for yourself as well, if you have children, any child age 3 to 4, please get them checked out. And that means that you can reach out to your closest regional center. What ends up happening is that you apply, you call in the closest regional center to you. It's free of services. They do an assessment to see your child's communication skills. They've got. They want to see how their speech is, their motor skills. Are they able to use their hands properly? Are they able to eat properly? Wear their clothes properly? Are they cognitively very much aware of what is 2 + 2, and then also their reading level and stuff. And that's all free of charge. Please take advantage of it. And I can tell you, there's benefits to it. The benefits are that if you can intervene very early on, as if they're 3 years old to 4 years old, what ends up happening is that once you detect that certain problem, the regional center and the family will then come up with a case plan. That means that being able to send interventionists to the child's house to work on their behavior. Then the child will also be seen by a speech therapist if they need some form of therapy, speech in their speech or their motor skills. Just so there's structure, so the child has a structure from an earlier age. Once they hit elementary school and middle school, they have built and they have caught on to other children. Because if they don't, what ends up happening is your child is taken away from, as we call it, just the normal class, and then they're put into special classes, special ed classes. And that's where it becomes more difficult, because then your child is really with kids who have all sort of, they vary in their spectrum of autism. Some kids, they don't even talk. Some kids are, hitting themselves. And your child can start learning those habits, slurring things that are not good words, or they're starting to pick up habits of hitting, and you're like, well, my child never hit. Well, you have to remember, please do your best to, and if you have a child, especially for all, for you, for friends and family, please get your children checked out, even if there's nothing wrong with them. Just it's free of charge. It's good to know. One example came up to me. One of the sisters actually told me when I was doing a presentation. She said she had a daughter who was 5 years old, and what she noticed that the daughter would never speak at home. She was quiet, so they had concerns. So what they did was they took her to the regional center. The regional center did an assessment, and you'd be shocked, the results were actually the opposite. The child scored very high on the exam, and she had good motor skills and speaking skills, and cognitively she was very sharp. And the mother was happy. It's like, oh wow, it's like she's quiet, but then she actually did really good, which is good. Sometimes a child can be so talkative, so good, but once it comes to mentally, when you're giving them things to do, they score really low. So you want to be able to balance things out. Again, dear brothers and sisters, please call. Don't feel shy. Don't feel hesitant. This usually when I do these programs, this is all for you. This is for the community itself. If that means that your story can inspire or help others, it will be very beneficial. Even if it means that it will help me, where I can maybe learn from you guys and use those case scenarios with my own real life clients as well. And then if I don't mention anything as well, please do let me know or give me a call so I know as well. So please just try to be more encouraging in terms of making the phone calls, just so that I can know that the community is really into this material, so I can bring out more materials of education and services for everyone out there. So it's always fun to have a conversation, right? It kind of gets boring when you have one person talking all the time. Sometimes I don't, it's like you get to a point where like, okay, I don't even want to hear myself talk. So please encourage yourself to call in, or have your children call. Either way. Now we're going to move on to eating disorders. Eating disorder such as anorexia nervosa, we have bulimia nervosa, binge eating disorder, are a series of events that are life-threatening conditions as well. So children can become so preoccupied with with food and stuff and their weights that they focus on little else. So remember, there's times where certain kids, they get shamed, they get body shamed from a very young age. So what that causes, especially a lot of females, a lot of the sisters and a lot of the girls that are out there, If you guys are watching too, please remember, it's not healthy to be eating and binging. It's not healthy to be starving yourself. You trying to fit yourself in an outfit, if it means all means necessary, you're not doing justice for yourself. You go based off of what, on your daily, your weekly routine, and you go based off of that. You can't just take yourself out of, having no food, trying to do what the people around you tells you it's okay to do. And a lot of times it's unfortunate, but a lot of the the girls are always told you have to look a certain way, you have to look pretty, you have to be very fit. You want to wear these clothes, you want to look a certain way, or else people won't appreciate you. When you're young adults, sisters or females, they'd say, people won't marry you if you're not beautiful. You have to remember those are all not the best advertising way of really encouraging people to do something that's good. That's basically what it is. It's a scheme that's been used. One of the biggest issues also is that causes a lot of the eating disorder in today's world is also social media. As we look at it, and I've talked about it before, somebody, or let's say if take a female or a male, even males too, they come on social media and you look at them, they've got beautiful hair, they're well prepared, well dressed, or not dressed at all, good physiques. And what you notice is that you're like, oh wow, is this real? I want to be like this person. You have to remember sometimes they don't have the best best of life when it comes to food options. They're also suffering from unhealthy balanced eating. When they come on TV or on their Snapchat, they have a couple of people that work towards making them to make them look good on TV, or have the girls look really pretty. That doesn't work usually for us. You have to remember, it's just you have to be very comfortable with yourself in your own skin and be proud of it. It's nothing to be ashamed of. And eating disorder does lead to more issues. It can cause a lot of inflammatory issues, digestive issues, which can cause internal bleeding. It shuts your system down from functioning. Not just that, but a lot, even general anxiety can cause eating disorder too, where if you're stressing so much where your stomach, is in pain because somebody has hurt you, right? Somebody said something, somebody has hurt you, and your stomach's in pain, you're starting to lose weight, you're starting to eat less, that ends up leading into eating disorder. So remember that too, please. Always remember that. If sometimes if that's the issue, that it needs to be worked on, it needs to be discussed on. So the other one is also one of the other disorders that I would like to touch bases on is mood disorders. It's something that is known as such as depression or bipolar disorder. It can cause a child to feel persistent feelings of sadness or extreme mood swings, such as severe than the normal mood swings common in many people. So what I mean by that, so we all know when somebody has mood swings, right? It's either you're happy or you're sad. Such as I said, depression or bipolar. So I'm going to break it down for you guys too, what it means. So depression, as we all know, everybody gets depressed. There's a spectrum of are you you're depressed very lightly, is it moderate, or is it severe? Where are you? How bad is your depression? Are you depressed because somebody said something and you're depressed for you hold that in yourself, in your mind for, let's say, for 2 days to 3 days, and then you're good? Is this depression where you've said something really bad to somebody and it lasts you a week or two, and and it goes away? You talk to the person, you apologize, you resolve the problem, khalas? Or is this severe depression where you lose somebody, your loved one, you lose your parents, you lose your child, you have that causes you to have extreme depression, which leads to anything that's 2 weeks or more, which can lead into a month to 2 months, where you feel hopeless, you feel unworthy, you feel you start blaming God of why this happened. You feel like even not even existing anymore. There's no purpose in going forward in life. That's what depression is. And now I'm going to also talk about bipolar as well. So brothers and sisters, you have to remember, when I talk about bipolar, there's also two things with that, okay? So you've got bipolar 1, and then you have bipolar 2. So there's two types of diagnoses that we diagnose. Bipolar 1, number 1, it has two phases, you know? You've got your highs, and then you've got your highs, and you got your lows. What I mean by that you might be asking, what do I mean by that? Well, your highs are that when an individual is very happy with life, very satisfied. You know, they want to do things. They're energetic. They're happy. They're like, you know, they want to go out, and you look at them, you're like, oh my God, this person is so happy, so energetic. It's having a good time. You know, they're fun. They want to try new things. But guess what? After certain moments or a certain day, you see, you know, them drop. Their mood flips. It changes, and then they become very sad. They become very depressed. Even you don't even want to be next to them because you feel depressed, right? Because this is the things they say. But then they flip back. They're all happy again, and you're like, oh, what's going on? Why are they happy, sad, happy, sad? That's called bipolar 1. And that happens, it's a 50-50. So one day, in a moment you're happy, a moment you're sad. A moment you're happy again, and then you're sad again. So that's bipolar. So now, let's talk about the difference between bipolar 1, as I just stated now, versus bipolar 2. So now, bipolar 2, the way that looks and what you should know is that your child, well, let me tell you the definition of bipolar 2. Bipolar 2 is more of, you have less highs and long duration of lows. What do I mean by that now? So a person or a child can have, you know, bipolar 2, so they're happy and energetic for a week, very energetic, but then the next month, remaining of the month, for a very long time, they're depressed. Let's say out of the whole month or out of 2 months, just 1 week, they're happy. That's bipolar 2. With bipolar 1, the only difference is that it flip-flops. So 1 week you're happy, 1 week you're sad. One day you're happy, one day you're mad. 1 second you're happy, 1 second you're not. Bipolar 2 is different. The highs are very short, for a short period of time. It stays for a very short period of time, but the lows stay there consistently for a long period of time. So you have to remember that. So now we're going to go ahead and discuss schizophrenia. This is something that I do get questions a lot about, is, you know, what is schizophrenia? You know, what is schizophrenia? So, well, this chronic mental health illness causes a child to lose touch with reality, which is also known as psychosis. Schizophrenia most often appears in late teens through the to once they hit 20. So once they're teenagers to 20, once they hit ages of 20, that's when they start developing schizophrenia, as we call it. So schizophrenia, you have to watch out for certain things about schizophrenia, brothers and sisters. You have to know that when someone has schizophrenia, you know, and is intact with reality, they don't know what is real and what is not real. And you have to remember that. You have to know that if sometimes there's folks that have delusions and hallucination, and it's a term also used as psychosis. So what happens here is that a person starts hearing things. A person starts, when they're hallucinating, starts seeing things. They think it's real. A person starts smelling things. A person, you can even taste things. They think it's real. They have real conversations with individuals. And you have to remember, that's you being away from reality. You don't know if it's real or not. The person that has schizophrenia. So that's the hallucination. Now let's talk about the delusional. Delusion is something that you or myself, I make in my brain, and I tell myself that, you know what, the police is after me. But in reality, nobody's after you. But I tell myself, you know what, police is after me, and I create that image that there's somebody out there after me. That's delusion, being delusional. So you have to remember that as well, brothers and sisters. And the reason why I said, you know, most often appears late teenagers through the 20s is that it starts off with late teens through 20s, is that's the time when teenagers, they get involved with alcohol, with drugs, Your brains are not fully developed. And the moment you start taking substances, it causes disruption in your brain, because our brain really develops by the time we're 25. So when you're starting to do drugs, or when you're starting to take, you're starting to drink alcohol, it destroys chemicals and cells in your brain, and that causes triggers for you to start seeing things, for you to start thinking things are real and things are real or not. And I'll give you an example now too. So now imagine this. This is how drugs and alcohol work. A human body, so let's take a human body. This is me. This is the flat level line of the level of hormones and chemicals that run my body. This is just flat normal, how I am normal. When I'm happy, this is the movement of my mood. This is the normal line. When I'm happy, this goes up, because I'm happy, right? I'm smiling, I'm laughing. My energy levels are up. So the energy levels are up. My dopamine is good. It's giving my body rush. So it's up. Once it slows down, it goes back and it levels out to the same level as what my body, the minimum, the level of your body should be. So it stays there. So once you're happy, it goes up and it goes back down. It equals out, matches out. Let's say you're sad and depressed. It goes down. After a while, it goes back up. Equals out. It has to equal out. Now, when you take drugs and alcohol, it goes up, right? And it goes upper than up. So what happens is your body usually gives you this much up, that gives you this much up. And now let's say when you're done taking your drugs, and you wear off, or your alcohol wears off, that goes down, but it doesn't go down here where it matches. It's going to go lower. It dips lower and it stays like this now. So what happens is you feel so sad, you're like, oh, you know what, I got to do drugs again because I have to feel good. So what ends up happening is when you do it, it goes up, not knowing even then from here, it goes lower and it goes lower. And you're starting to damage yourself. You're starting to damage your brain, your physical health, and your emotional health, and everything is all over the place. So remember, these are real issues and problems that could lead into something that's prolonged. And one of the severe things that usually a lot of folks that they face is schizophrenia.